Hello again, you guys, it's Carly from the Poetry of Nice and welcome back to my channel. So this is part 4, I think we're on now, of my 8-part series about what I wish I would have known before selling online. If you're new to my channel, welcome. This is a channel all about reselling online. So I sell currently on eBay, Poshmark and Etsy, and I do it all while being a stay-at-home parent to 3 boys under 5. On this channel you're going to find content about like haul videos and then what sells, because it's really important to know what things actually sell for on these platforms, and then also some how-tos, some tutorials, some day in the life and all kinds of fun stuff in between. So if that sounds interesting, please do think about hitting that subscribe button down below and coming back to hang out again. If you haven't caught the rest of the sort of episodes, I suppose you could say, in this series, I will link them in a card up here so that you can go and check them out as well if you want to. But this one today, number 4, is going to be all about pricing to sell. So obviously if you're selling online, that's a really important element, is knowing how to price your items to make sure that they sell. And it's not a simple one either. So I've come up with like 5 little tips / talking points that I'm going to touch on just briefly today, things that I think about when I am listing an item and deciding exactly what to price it for in the market that I'm seeing online. So number 1 may seem like an obvious one, but it's to check your comps. That means to check your comparable items. So if you're new to this, on eBay and Poshmark you can basically go to sold listings, and you can search your own item. So say that I had a pair of, I don't know, high-rise skinny American Eagle jeans. I could put those into the search bar and then I could filter by sold items, and on eBay completed listings, which I'll touch on in just a little while, and I could put in my size so that I filtered it down to almost the exact item that I have to list, and I could see what has sold recently and what it has sold for, and that's going to give me an idea of how I should price my own item in terms of what the market is demanding at the moment. So what I do is I look at those sold items that are comparable to my own, and I take an average price essentially of what it's sold for. So if I see them ranging from $15 to $25 habitually, I may go ahead and say that $20 is a pretty reasonable expectation for what the item is going to sell for. I probably will price a little bit higher. Again, I'm going to touch on that in another tip just a little bit later on, but that is what I'm going to have in my mind as a pretty average sales price for that item. Something that you're also going to want to consider when you're pricing your item to sell is sell-through rate. So essentially that means how often does that item sell and how quickly does it sell. You can look into this a little easier on eBay than you can on Poshmark, because you can filter by not sold items but completed listings. It's right there on the side for you as well. You'll be able to see if you scroll down, you can select that, and just that alone, not sold, just completed, and that's going to show you all of the listings essentially that have ended, and I think it's within the last 3 months or so it'll show you. So what you're going to want to look at is how many items are actually highlighted in green, which means that they have actually sold and gone out to a buyer. If you have a lot of listings in between every green listing, that's going to tell you that the demand for that item isn't particularly high, and you can expect it to sit for a little bit longer until a buyer actually comes along. It's just some really good information to have when you're deciding on how to price and how to sort of take offers and things like that and negotiate on that particular item. I also like to take into consideration how many of my items are available, not just my item specifically, but in my size. If I'm the only person who has that item on any platform, and I'm the only one who has it in a specific size, that kind of means that I have a little bit of control over that corner of the market. Now, whether that actually helps me sell it, that depends on if the right buyer comes along still. But again, it's good information to have when you're deciding how to price your item. You know how saturated essentially that particular item is within your marketplace right now. And don't forget that when you're looking at comps, things like size and color do matter. It matters if you have one of 50 black dresses, say, and the only ones that have sold in the last couple of months are blue dresses. You're going to want to take that into consideration. Or if your item is perhaps the same size as everybody else who has them listed, then that also means that there's a lot of saturation right now, and you're probably going to have to wait a little while for your item to get selected out of the bunch. One more tip about checking comps on Poshmark as well is you can filter down to be a little more specific to the item that you have. So if you're just searching at a J. Crew career dress and you don't have a style name or anything like that, go ahead and filter down by like color and size and things like that. So you're really looking at other things on the market that are just like what you have, and you can get a much better idea of how the market is treating that item right now. Okay, my second point is going to be that sad but true, retail cost doesn't really matter that much. So there are quite a few brands out there. Ones that come to mind are like Eileen Fisher, Ellie Tahari, sometimes Vince, just depending what piece you have, and a few others as well that they retail really high, but the resale value just isn't really that great. I have definitely sold a few pieces from, like, say Lafayette 148 where they've retailed for, oh my goodness, like between $300 and $500 for a blazer, and I've just managed to sell it for $30. It is good, of course, to be aware of what the retail value of an item is. Unfortunately, you can't let that influence how you price it above what the actual comps on your marketplace, your platform that you're selling on, are telling you at this time. Even if an item is new with tags, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get too much more for it or anything close to the retail price. Again, go ahead and filter down in your search of sold items by new with tags, and you're going to be able to see a little bit more information about what those kinds of items brand new are going for currently in the marketplace. Okay, point number 3 is something that I do personally. Other people may not, that's absolutely fine, but I'm going to share it with you anyway, is I price my items towards the top of market value, if not at the top. And I do this for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it gives me an opportunity to read the market and to see how people react to my items, if it gets a lot of attention in terms of likes or comments, offers, things like that on both eBay and Poshmark. And if not, I can always lower that price. It's not a big deal. I just like to keep an eye on my items and kind of see how they're doing in terms of activity. It also gives me the opportunity to negotiate with those items. So I've talked about this before on many videos, I know, but I do like to be very active on Poshmark with offer to likers, meaning when somebody likes an item, I like to go in almost immediately and offer them a discount and effort to try to encourage them to buy that item. What I don't want to do necessarily is compromise the marketplace too much, and I don't want to compromise my profit margins too much. So the way that I counteract that is I list towards the top end so that I really give myself the opportunity to send those offers out. At the end of the day, if I've listed an item around 10% higher than what I would expect to get it on an average sale, I have given myself 10% worth of wiggle room, essentially, where I can be active, I can be proactive, I suppose you could say, in terms of chasing down a sale or giving a buyer incentive to choose my item over others. Offer to likers is obviously a Poshmark sort of scenario, but it also applies for me for eBay as well when it comes to accepting best offers. I do like to have best offer on a lot of my items, and in order to sort of entertain that and have some wiggle room to go back and forth with a buyer, I do need to start at a price that's a little bit, even just a few dollars, like I said, 5 or 10% above what I'm comfortable with, so that I can drop that price without really compromising my profit margins or what I hope to get from that item at a fair market value. One of the main things I'm getting at here is when you price your items, make sure that you are aware of and you keep in mind your cost of goods, the amount, like the percentage amount of fees that you're going to be paying on the item at the end of the day, and what your desired profit margin is. For me personally, I buy my items at a very good price usually because I do rummage sales and things like that, so my cost of goods is usually very low. I'm usually happy with like a bread and butter style item going for a $10 profit. To me, $10 is fair when it takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to photograph, measure and list a very simple, like I said, bread and butter type item. So $10, 10 minutes worth of work at home, you know, processing after the fact of purchasing it and all that kind of stuff. To me, that is fair for my time. So I always aim to do a minimum of $10. Sometimes I slip underneath that, sometimes I'm way above that. It all kind of evens out in the end, of course, but that is what I have in mind. And obviously on Poshmark, when somebody sends you an offer or you send them an offer, Poshmark is fantastic because it shows you underneath right where your earnings are going to be, and you can just subtract your cost of goods from that and know exactly what you're working with. eBay is a little bit more difficult, especially when you start running with like promoted listings and things like that, which cost you money when you make a sale. So again, just be aware of your numbers, be aware of your baselines and things like that, and bear that in mind when you start negotiating with your customers. Okay, my point number 4 is going to be about vintage items specifically. When it comes to vintage items, it can be really difficult to find exact comps. It's not like a J. Crew piece where you plug in the style number to Google and it shows you the exact name, the exact item time and time again and what it's sold for in the last 3 months. Vintage items, often there is nothing that you can find that's exactly like it, so you have to go with a wider range of data, I suppose you could say, when you come up with your price to sell. Things I take into consideration are what's in style, what's on trend right now. Is it a sort of boho 70s loud floral print, you know, flowy bell sleeves? If so, it's probably going to do a lot better than maybe like a very sleek 1950s piece or something like that, which maybe is less on trend, although classic, less on trend right now. So I'm probably going to consider those kind of factors. I'm also going to bear in mind that vintage items for the most part are long tail items, meaning they're going to be hanging around and waiting for the right buyer. Now there are some pieces that I have that are in and out as fast as you like. A lot of those things involve like vintage graphic tees or very specific vintage items like, you know, Tommy Hilfiger or Ralph Lauren spell out vintage pieces, all that kind of stuff. Those things I would expect to move fairly quickly because the demand is higher and they're more popular. But in terms of just a generic, no name, I don't know, floral blouse or whatever, I am going to have to rely on sharing my item habitually, having other people share for me, like my PFFs. Thank you guys for doing that. And just making sure that I'm getting it in front of the right eyes, and eventually the right buyer will come and buy it. Pricing is obviously going to matter with that. Usually with vintage items, I start a little bit higher, and again, I watch the market, I see how many people are interacting with and sort of being active with my item, whether it would be likes or questions or offers, and I go ahead and adjust my price accordingly. And again, I give myself the opportunity by pricing a little bit higher to be active with those people who do like that item in terms of sending out those offers and whatnot, and hopefully securing a sale that way. At the end of the day though, when you have a one-off vintage item and you're waiting for the right person to find it who falls in love with it, chances are they're going to be very interested because it's unique. They're not going to be able to go to a different person's store necessarily and get it for a better price, so you do sort of own the marketplace in that way. And just be careful with these styles and things that you're picking up, and make sure that they're relevant and popular enough that you can put some good keywords in your title and help people find that item. And number 5 is really an overview of everything that I've said in this video, and that is listen to the market. We all think that we should get a certain amount for certain items. I myself have some items that I refer to, and I'll be doing a video on real soon, as cursed items, because they are really, really good brands that by all means, every video, every YouTube video and things like that, and even the comps themselves tell me I should be able to get a good price for this item, and I cannot for the life of me sell it to somebody. I don't know why, it just won't seem to move. I have several like that, and I'm going to do like a fun little video roundup about that, because I think we all have cursed items where we just don't understand why they're not selling, and I figured it might be fun to show those to you. But at the end of the day, the point I'm making is the market speaks for itself. You can relist, you can do photographs, you can rework your keywords and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, an item is really only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it. So make sure that you have your ear to the ground, make sure you're not being precious about your items. You know, at the end of the day, if something's been in your store for over a year and somebody offers you a lowball offer, it might be time to go ahead and recoup that money and put it back into the cash flow of purchasing new inventory now that you have learned more along the way. Hey, that's just the circle of life of reselling. Alright you guys, I hope that that was interesting or useful, and please do throw your comments down below so that I can read them and respond and say hello. And stay tuned for the next episode in this What I Wish I Would Have Known Before I Started Reselling. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Please think about subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye you guys.